My name is James Williams. This is Come for Happy number 2. As I said, in this video, I'm going to specifically talk about some shit dealing with the Cree and the Skrull and Ms.Marvel. Alright? Now, mind you, that everything I'm about to say no longer counts because of the retcon in 2008. Alright? The retcon, whatever the hell it is you want to call it. That fucking whole wiping of the Marvel Universe by Scarlet Witch and her miscarriage of the children that was from Vision. Now the problem with that is, before I go too deep into that, I want to talk about how back in the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, Scarlet Witch and Vision had two twin sons. I don't know who in the Marvel archives forgot about those kids, and I don't remember their names, but Scarlet Witch and Vision had two twin sons. Now, I don't know what happened that in the late 90s and the 2000s that you don't know where the hell those kids ever went to, but you don't hear anything about the kids, and then when she miscarries, she totally fucks up the 616, only to be recorrected by Franklin Richards. So, I don't really understand any of that. Moving on. So initially, Captain Marvel was a Cree warrior who came to Earth, and basically, I think he was just there to spy on Earthlings to see if they could be conquered, and that was initially. However, he managed to wind up saving them because of the Skrull invasion that was impending, and he basically was tracking around the Earth, and I guess because he's a Cree, he can automatically sense Skrulls. I have never figured out how Crees can always find a Skrull in the middle of a fucking haystack. Alright? But anyway, the Skrull being the needle. This guy was on Earth, and somehow or another, I guess he had collaborations with guys in S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government and everything. I guess he just introduced himself as he's a Cree warrior from the Cree world. I don't think he told them that the Cree were planning to conquer Earth, but the Cree were planning to subject some of their citizens to giving them superpowers so that they can defend the Earth. It's a whole bunch of red tape there. Because the Cree were responsible for the Inhumans, but they're not responsible for the mutants. Because eventually evolution is responsible for the mutants, but not all of the mutants are descendants of the Inhumans. Hopefully that makes some sense, because there is a small difference between mutants and Inhumans. I don't know what the hell that would make the difference because of the fact that they all have superpowers. Somebody in the writing department obviously didn't meet in the middle with that, because if you're an X-Man, you have powers, you're born with them. They don't manifest until puberty. Well, same shit happens with the Inhumans. They don't manifest into puberty. Some manifest way after puberty, but the Inhumans and the mutants basically are the same damn thing. Crash, burn, that's done. Now, we're going back into the Cree and the Skrull. The Cree and the Skrull have been fighting for eons before Earth even came on their radar, which is why Captain Marvel and most of the Crees look more humanoid, where the Skrulls are just green with like rigid chins and shit. They're like somebody took a branding iron and burnt all their chins. Alright? Now the Cree, who knew about Earth, apparently the Skrulls also knew about Earth, and the Skrulls were sent to Earth and emulated humans as to spy on the humans, the same way the same way Captain Marvel went down to Earth and did his thing. Now, here's the thing, the humans were neutral and had no idea what the hell was going on. The humans had never been exposed to the Cree, the Shi'ar, or the Brood, with the exception of Professor Charles Xavier and Carol Danvers. So, we're going to get to that. Eventually, Captain Marvel is called home. Now, here's where things get kind of fucked up, and this is where my knowledge is lost. Carol Danvers, who was Ms.Marvel, I don't remember how the hell she got her powers, or how she received her powers. But initially, she lost her powers by her and Rogue having this big old fight. And her and Rogue having this fight is how Rogue became invulnerable to everything. Bullets, she's not invincible, but she's pretty damn close to it, because Carol Danvers is not invincible, but she was pretty damn close to it. You know, like one pubic hair away from being invincible. You know, bullets and lasers and shit like that just did not fucking hurt her. Okay? And she was in the Air Force. That part's about right. But how she acquired her powers, I'm pretty sure it was retconned, and they'll go over that when the movie drops. But from what I know, it's that she's always had her powers. They never really dug too deep into her how she got her powers. They just dug into the fact that she was an Air Force pilot, kind of like Hal Jordan for DC. And, you know, if you can find the original, then y'all can hook me up because I'm not sure how the hell that happened. I do know that she lost her powers because of Rogue. Rogue not only took her powers, Rogue also took her personality, which when she came to Xavier, Xavier had locked Carol into a cage in Rogue's mind because she couldn't get the screaming out of her head. However, at one point in the middle 80s, Rogue was going to visit Carol's body, and Rogue was often called Carol a couple of times because Carol Danvers' personality kind of manifests its way in and out. So initially, that happened, and then they had a comic in the 90s where they both fought each other, and Carol Danvers somehow got her powers back. But Rogue still kept her powers and was still invincible too. It's like a really big clusterfuck. There was like some serious fucking up going on in the writings there. But anyway, by the end of it, somehow, Comatose Carol woke up. Comatose Carol was taken into outer space by the Shi'ar Empire and became binary. I'm pretty sure the movie's not going to touch on that. But binary is one of the Shi'ar Guardians. And somehow or another, the Shi'ar Guardians, binary, existed way back in the Dark Phoenix saga. Because she was one of the people who was also fighting the superheroes when they were fighting on the moon for Jean Grey before Jean Grey committed seppuku. Okay, so you have binary, guardian, and a clusterfuck of others that I can't remember. And then you have Corsair and the Starjammers. Now, the Starjammers basically did their thing. They were pirates and shit like that. But for the Shi'ar Empire, Gladiator, Binary, that robot with the other robot, and a shitload of others, for the X-Men on the moon to the death. But they didn't kill them. Colossus lost to Gladiator. I forgot who Wolverine fought, but Wolverine didn't lose the fight. But then he got zapped. Jean and Scott were the last two, and then Jean got tired of running, so she imprisoned Scott in like a wall up to his neck or some shit. And then she made the gun on the moon from whatever civilization that lived on the moon, blew her to pieces. Which wasn't Jean, it was actually the Phoenix, etc., etc. They recently retconned all that shit. So everything I just said is basically now in void. Now, going back to Carol Danvers. Alright. I don't know how she became Captain Marvel. I know how she became binary, which I just went over, but I don't know all the way of how she became binary. I know that Rogue took all of her powers, like every bit of her powers, and Rogue kept them. And then when she got back to normal or got back to life, somehow she got her powers back. But Rogue still had her powers, and there was a big clusterfuck about that. Like I said, somewhere in the middle of the writing, there was some zigzags instead of some straight lines. And Marvel's famous for that. It's kind of what keeps it going. So then after that, they basically decided that Captain Marvel, who was on Earth, went back to the Cree world. Well, Binary was still in the Herald of the Shi'ar Empire, and I believe she also became the Herald of Galactus to keep them away from the Shi'ar Empire or whatever, and all kinds of other shit came along. And then next thing you know, Captain Marvel's back on Earth. But not the male from the Cree planet, it's her. So somewhere along the line, between the 90s and the 2000s, there was some retconning and some clusterfucking, and you have Captain Marvel. Okay? Now, Ms.Marvel, at the time, has been rewritten, and now she's Kamala Khan. Because at the time, Marvel was getting their asses handed to them about the lack of diversity outside of blacks and white characters. So, they decided to make her Asian, but not like the Chinese or Japanese Asian. They made her Asian from India. That's why her name is Kamala Khan. However, Khan can also be a Mongolian last name, as well as a Chinese last name, as well as a white person's last name. So it's interchangeable, but there it is. So Kamala Khan, who has the power basically like Mr. Fantastic and some invulnerability, is now Ms. Marvel. Where Captain Marvel is now Carol Danvers. You see how things just kept going? You see why back in 2008 I picked up my last comic, and then I read a couple more in 2010, and then once my relationship went to hell, my comic collection just said, okay, I'm not adding anything else to it. I have other problems that I need to deal with. My movie was stolen, so that's why you guys don't know who the hell I am. So it's all kinds of stuff. But in the end, there's a movie coming out in March called Captain Marvel. Now, granted, Marvel had to have a serious war with DC over that because Marvel Comics was not always Marvel Comics, and DC was the first comics that actually produced Marvel Comics. When Marvel branched out on its own and had more successes than fails, DC decided that since they already had a Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel, which you all know as Shazam, had this big ass clusterfuck in a lawsuit. So eventually, Captain Marvel versus Captain Marvel, they started putting a hyphen in there so it would be Captain Marvel instead of Captain Marvel. And now, after all that, back in the 2020 and 2019 now that we are in, it's now Captain Marvel. So as you can see, you guys can do some of the research on that, because the retconning has totally fucked me up. So God only knows what it's done to you guys, but you guys are younger than me, so you probably don't have an issue with retconning. I have an issue with retconning. Now, in the DC comics, Captain Marvel, aka Shazam is what he uses to transform, and he has the power of the gods. However, in the Marvel comic universe, Captain Marvel, the Cree warrior, didn't have to transform. That was just natural of their design of birth. Where in Carol Danvers' case, she may have been a latent mutant or not. It's not really explained how she became Captain Marvel, and if it is, I totally missed it. But I know it happened somewhere in the retconning in 2008, because she was binary also. So it's some crazy stuff going on in those universes. But now the MCU is basically a sub-entity of all the shit from the comics. Because the movie universe, they have tie-ins, but they don't have real tie-ins that like actually tie you to the comics. They have tie-ins to explain origins. That's it. Because Iron Man's origin was done pretty good and right. Spider-Man's origins have been done awesome and right in damn near every film that they've done. The one with Tobey Maguire, the one with Andrew Garfield, the one with Tom Holland. They don't even let you see when he got bit in Homecoming. You just automatically come in knowing that he's Spider-Man. See how that works out. And then, like, with Iron Man and all three of his movies, they were pretty much done with that. Finding people to fight was kind of the big issue for me. My only disappointment in Iron Man was Iron Man 3, when they brought in the Mandarin, and he was an Asian. That kind of pissed me off. Not knocking the actor, because the actor, he's a very famous actor, actually, who was playing the Mandarin, who was playing an actor doing the Mandarin. Well, the real Mandarin has 10 rings of power, one for each finger, and he's actually an Asian. Now, I can't remember if he's Chinese or he's Japanese, but he's one of those two. He's not like Korean or any of that stuff, but he's definitely an Asian. He was also married to Psylocke, the Asian one, not the white one. And when they swapped bodies, the Asian one ran back to the X-Men, and the European one wound up going somewhere else, but she was also a spy for Mojo, just not knowing because she had bionic eyes. You guys understand where I'm going? Because eventually both of the Psylocks have a fight, and the British Psylocke with the European body, who has the Asian soul inside of her, she eventually dies from the legacy virus. Well, the Asian Psylocke, who doesn't have the legacy virus, lives for a little while, has a thing with Angel, and then she dies. Yep, from the legacy virus. And then she popped back into existence and continued on with Angel, and then popped back out of existence or some shit like that. You see why I stopped reading the comics? Because by that time, the mutants were all dying off, were becoming normal, they're losing their powers and shit. Inhumans weren't, but the mutants were. And then the X-Men and all those guys were pretty much imprisoned in their own X-Men mansion. They could not leave the mansion under any circumstances whatsoever. And they were guarded by 7 or 8 Sentinel robots who were not effective Sentinels by being Sentinels. They were man-controlled Sentinels. And that, after reading that, I was done. So, there you have it. I still have to do more research on Captain Marvel. but I'm pretty sure the movie's gonna kick ass because when I was younger, in a time when Nick Fury was a white man, not just because David Hasselhoff played him, but he has always been a white man until like the middle 90s, early 2000s. I had never seen a black Nick Fury until like that one cartoon where Wolverine was going after Wendigo or somebody. The next thing I know, Nick Fury's been black ever since. And then when Samuel L. Jackson started playing Nick Fury, he started being black and bald. Before that, he had hair. So, yeah. Comic retcons are some fucked up ass shit. I'm James Williams Jr. This is Cover Happy number 2. Be seeing you. Damn it, did it stop?